You're listening to another great episode of We Speak Dispatch, sponsored by our friends at Watson.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of We Speak Dispatch, because if we are speaking dispatch, hopefully you are going to start speaking dispatch as well. We have a lot of cool things to talk about today. But first, let's go around the horn and say hi to all of our usual suspects. So, Jill, I'm going to go to you first because you got some background noise. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm outside and it's the cicadas. They are apparently the males are the ones that make the noise, so that's what you're hearing. Mm-hmm. You kind of forget about it after a while. I don't know. They're all flying around me. We have a screened in port, so they're not going to come flying on me. But
that's good, because that would be a freak out moment for me. Gross. And Joe, where are you hailing from today?
I'm in Iowa, but soon to be going out to the great Northwest and going to be hiking up some peaks here pretty quickly. And I'm excited as I'll get out to go hiking in the mountains.
Because you've been training for that for a while, right?
Yes, I have.
Wow.
Awesome.
Look at him, all like, nice. All right.
I know. And so, Doug, when is your next hiking trip?
I was training for the last 6 months and finally decided to say I'm done with that. So I left the Navy SEALs. I'm out of it now. No. I'm hiding in the house from the cicadas. So that's
that's it.
That.
Yeah.
So,
they're everywhere.
I'm not doing any hiking. I am traveling, but not doing any hiking. So
okay. Well, and we were going to talk about things that swarm, and then we decided after one of Joe's stories that was not what we were going to talk about. But instead,
yikes,
we're going to talk about kind of a big deal that's happening in today's 911 centers across the country, technology and what it is and what it can do, and some of the things that people are concerned about, and maybe great things that can happen as a result of this. So just as a kind of a reference point, because this was another topic we were going to kind of mention, is the history or our history in 911. So Doug, I'm not going to put you at the top of the list because of your tenure, but can you tell us a little bit about what 911 was like when you started? We were talking about the big books.
You know, when Jill brought this topic up to me and said, let's talk about the history of 911, I was like, I think I'm probably the only one here who probably didn't have 911 when I was a kid. We didn't. It was, you had to dial the phone number for the sheriff's department down the street. I think it was 323-1212, something like that. So there just was no 911. And I remember when 911 first came out and everybody's talking about it, how great it's going to be and how it's going to be life-saving. And I'm going, who's going to remember that? And so, because everybody in my, generation, like Leslie, had to remember certain numbers. Like, I mean, I remember my home number, 964-3734. I mean, all that stuff was just ingrained in you where you had to remember these things. And now it's a push button. I mean, that's it to get 911. So yeah, that's a long time ago. So I'm glad the technology improved over time.
Yeah. So Joe, what about you? What do you remember about being in the center when 911 was kind of in its infancy?
I remember two things that stick out. The first thing would be the pad on the phone receiver and actually having to push a button and pick up the phone. They get stuck to the back of the phone, you lean, you type like this.
That's right.
Lean with your head on your shoulder. And then the second thing that I remember are what I call the cages that our printers used to live in because they were so loud and they'd spit out like a 14-page weather report in between, like you're running a warrant check on somebody and it's sitting there going.
That's right. The dot matrix printers.
Yes. And they're so loud that they had to put them in like insulated cages so we could actually hear people on the phone. So
that paper with the holes on the side that was just oh my God.
If it got screwed up or jammed. Yes.
Wow. Y'all are old. I'm just saying.
Yeah. What about you, Jill? What do you remember about? Because by the time you were in the 911 profession, we were, I mean,
pretty far along.
Yeah, we were pretty far along. Stone tablets and chisels like the rest of us.
Yeah.
I just remember it was a huge transition between phase 1 and phase 2 wireless. That was the biggest thing going on when I started back in 911. And you had to learn the difference between the two. Like when you're in training, like I had no idea what was like I'm like phase 1, phase 2. I don't understand this. And when I found or you realize, hey, phase 1 gives you like a 15-mile radius. Phase 2 gives you like a triangle of like a mile. So
yeah, it's a little bit better.
It's even like pinpointed down to exactly where you are. So
yeah. Yeah. And there's a ton of technology that's out there that's not just like, you know, like Joe was talking about, there's the device-based hybrid locations. So it's like when you order a pizza or Uber or anything like that, as soon as you push that button, they know exactly where you are. And so now there's companies and
Well, Leslie, what about
that
your
information.
experience with 911? What about your way back when you had to dial the phone, you called Ethel and said, connect me to
That's
KL
right.
385?
Party line. Exactly. The big thing that I remember was, and Doug, you can relate to this, is when California Highway Patrol was going to stop with the call boxes. And so each different municipality or jurisdiction was going to have to answer their own wireless, because for the longest time, wireless calls automatically went out to CHP.
Yeah. That's well, when I was started, call boxes and really the cell phones weren't as big as they've become. So, I mean, our call volume was not that high, but as it started growing, I mean, our call volume just started expanding like crazy to where when I was in 93, I think they said it was over a million calls a year. And I'm just like, a million calls are coming in that place because nobody was using landlines anymore. I mean, hell, I don't know if anybody even has one anymore. And if they do, they're probably in their 90s. So it's like,
exactly.
Just don't have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when you get a 911 call and you look and it's actually a hardline phone, you're like, wow, that's weird.
Wow, what happened?
That's bizarre. Yeah, because I think there's over 450 million connected devices in the country right now. Jesus. And that, you know, Internet of Things and all of the stuff. I mean, think about, and I in some of the classes that I teach, I give people homework, and I'm going to give everybody who's listening homework. The next time you can, log into your router, whoever provides your Wi-Fi service, your internet service, and look how many things are connected to your router. So we have 2 people that live in this house. We have over 25 things that are connected. So
I didn't think there was that many until you look at it, and then you're like, what the hell is all this stuff connected? I'm like, all these cameras and everything else out here. So
and that's the thing. So the big technology push into 911 centers now is, I think we've mastered the whole wireless thing, but now it's like stuff like security cameras, like you mentioned, Doug, and some other different AI pieces of equipment that are helping people even process calls for service. So Joe, you mentioned something as we were getting ready for this episode. Tell us what you saw or what you were able to witness out of
well, I'm not witnessed yet, but I just read an article where it sounds like AI is doing the typing for the dispatcher. They still have to approve what was said, but they sit there and call take without doing anything. AI types it up for them, and then they just hit enter to approve it. And I think it's in some trial runs already where you're still keeping that human interface, but they're getting calls posted quicker and doing some things through AI to make it work a little bit better.
Does it do language translation, or is it just for English? Do you remember? Because I know that there's language translation and transcription out there.
Yeah, I don't remember for sure.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's not a first step to eliminating dispatch.
Yeah.
Where it'll be an AI, it'll be Siri or Alexa or somebody doing it. And it's like, I think it's a slippery slope to fall into, but a lot of people do. But hey, before we get to that point, Leslie, you have a very unique history of 911. You lived in another country. What was 911 over there? Did they even have it?
They didn't have it. Yeah. There's no such. Yeah. I lived in the Middle East when I was in high school. And at the time, you had police out on the street, but there was I don't know that there was any organized way to call for any help other than going out on the street and flagging somebody down.
Holy cow. God.
Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame.
Wow.
Whole different ballgame. Yeah. But so there's other things like Joe's talking about with this transcription and translation and stuff like that. I was reading an article not too long ago that's talking about, Doug, you mentioned the security cameras, where there's a company that through AI, they put some AI on existing security cameras on places like hospitals and schools and places where they're not supposed to be weapons. And then through this AI interface, the AI can recognize when somebody walks onto the campus that looks like they have a weapon, and it triggers an activation that goes then to a command center that's staffed by military or ex-law enforcement. And they look in that video or look in that picture and go, oh, yeah, that looks like a weapon. Let's call the local, 911 center. And then, you've got that pre-alert almost before anything bad happens.
Well, we just had this experience in Nashville where we live, and they had a company that came out and said they've got this technology that they can watch these things, it'll detect guns. And then it turns out, after they paid a ton of money for these things, didn't work. It wasn't. It couldn't identify it was missing phones. It was picking up all kinds of other stuff. And it was like, oh my God. So they were trying to go after the company now who claimed it would find guns, and instead it's finding phones and change and wallets and everything else in there. So I always tell people, just make sure you know what you're getting when you get that stuff, because it would be great to have that technology in schools and in hospitals and wherever else. I mean, it'd be great to have that kind of stuff. However, what about in areas where you can carry guns? I mean, where it's legal to carry.
Right.
I mean,
well, yeah. And I guess because it goes to that command center that's staffed by humans that have the, they can maybe, I don't know how they do it, look to see, okay, hey, in this state, this is what's allowed. And I don't know. I think the fear that y'all have talked about with all of this technology is going to get rid of, the human factor. From what I understand and from what I've read, and Joe, you can hop in here too, is that it's the AI and a lot of this stuff is meant to remove some of those repetitive calls for service, those non-emergency calls that, if you've ever worked day shift in a dispatch center, your citizens know pretty quickly, oh, this is the only number that's not going to go to a voice tree. So I'm going to call this number. And so you can actually build out a phone tree type thing that will, recognize key phrases that the administrators can set up. So if somebody does say, I need to talk to somebody because I just got robbed. Oh, okay, that's going to trigger, and now a live person's going to come in versus, oh, hey, I just want to call because there's a car parked out front of my house. So I think a lot of the technology companies are trying to address the fact that there's definitely going to be a need for the human element.
Yeah, but I say that, like, when you take the human element out of it, what do you fall back on? Like that Christmas Day bombing in Nashville when AT&T went out. Like, if the entire center is relying on AI technology, what happens then? You can't just call a bunch of people who don't work there in to cover everything.
Right. So, well, and you think about though, and we've all done this. Okay, if I order my coffee, I do it through an app. If I make an airline reservation, I do it through an app. If I need to change my hotel reservation or a car reservation, I do it through an app. And I'm old. So we've now got an entire generation. Thanks, Dad. We've got an entire generation of people who are used to interacting with that type of environment and not as much picking up a phone and calling. So I think there's a responsibility that public safety has to transition.
Forbes had an interesting article a couple months back about McDonald's. And they were saying, McDonald's has installed those ATM-like looking things where you can order without even walking over to the thing. And they said there are certain McDonald's that are now trying, how about automatic cookers that are cooking those hamburgers for you and assembling them automatically, and they'll be produced faster and more efficient. You know what that means? Eliminating workers. They're gone. And it's like, this whole article was about like how they can transform a McDonald's from a staff of 100 down to 5.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just a very quick thing. I mean,
yeah. And I've heard podcasts and things like that also talk about that there is, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but there's like a huge majority of the population, especially post-COVID, that when people were getting paid not to go to work, they decided, this is a pretty good gig.
Yeah.
I still don't want to go to work. And so there's people in the country who are healthy and able to go to work and they choose not to. So I think that is also kind of a catalyst for what you're talking about.
I think that one of the things is the technology was evolving before COVID, but I think that with some agencies, COVID challenged departments around the nation to take more calls over the phone or provide remote type services of law enforcement to the community. Right. And I think that between the technology evolving and COVID, you're starting to see more of this technology start to drive departments because of the whole big picture. And it's kind of interesting is whether or not the level of service dropped off. And at least with the agency I used to work at, I didn't see the level of service dropping off. The citizens still reported what they were going to report. The officers still followed up on it. They just weren't physically right in front of them at the time.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's just, none of us are actually working in a comm center anymore, but we still identify as though that's right. Sorry, I forgot. Joe left and then he came back.
It's like the mob, they bring them back.
Yeah. But that's a great point that if I order my coffee through an app, I don't get mad about it. I just, that's what I do. And maybe it's just me, but I don't necessarily want to talk to anybody. I just go in, get my stuff, come back out. So I know I am kind of rude, but so, I mean, we could go on about technology and the different types. I mean, like mapping and translation and video cameras and, apps. Like there's something that I read not too long ago where it's actually anticipating an emergency. And so like, I think it's a pacemaker. And so, if you've got a pacemaker installed and it detects that you're going into defib or something like that, you may not necessarily feel it, but it recognizes it and activates a process and a workflow that will call 911 on your behalf before you ever know that you need help.
As you're sitting in the living room, the fire department's running in, you're like, hold on.
Yeah, I just was scared. The cicada got on me.
They've already got in watches and stuff, they've already got fall detection, they've got crash detection. Right. You're already taking alarms remotely by typing back and forth with alarm companies. Right. I mean, technology is really starting to evolve, but I still don't, my personal opinion is the human element in 911 will be there forever.
Yeah. I don't think any of us are going away. So, well, we are at time. So I appreciate the conversation. I know we could talk about this for hours. So great conversation. And hey, Joe, can you, speaking of technology, let us know where we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We are in over 50 different countries, nearing 40,000 podcast plays. We want you listening to us. We hope you're listening to us on a break, on your way to work, on your way home from work. Shoot us some ideas that you want to talk about. Be a guest. Jill down there in the corner or wherever she's at on Doug's screen, one of the corners, will reach out to you just by emailing wespeakdispatch@gmail.com, and she will coordinate all of it. It'll be painless for you, and we want to see you on the next episode.
Awesome.
Watson Consoles is a proud sponsor of the We Speak Dispatch podcast. For more information or to schedule a showroom tour, visit watsonconsoles.com.